I want to tell you about the 5 things I did that went completely against the norm and the advice I was given when I was starting my dental office from scratch. I want to share this with you because I run into this on a weekly basis where I get emails from readers of my blog or a few of you that watch my videos, or even through phone conversations with doctors who are starting their practice from scratch or who are already established. Whenever I go to these dental Facebook groups or dental online forums like Dental Town or even Reddit, or even reading through a dental magazine article, the conversations always tend to hover around setting industry standards for how a dental office should operate to be successful. Whether it's setting a ceiling or a floor for a certain overhead percentage, or discussing how the doctor should focus on this and not that, and how you should never do X to increase patient case acceptance. It's like all the offices, to be successful, you have to operate from this one angle only, without taking into consideration the location, the patient demographics, the doctor's skill set, or the doctor's personality, etc. I'll give you an example. For instance, they'll tell you things like, well, your payroll should be X percentage of your monthly collections, or your rent should be X percentage of your collections, or the doctor should never discuss finances in the operatory and should not be involved with how the patient's dental insurance works in the practice. And everything that you don't know should completely be delegated or outsourced, and the doctor should just focus on clinical dentistry. From my experience, and again, this is my opinion only, if you go by these standards and if you stick to these blatant statements, I can 100% guarantee you, you're not maximizing your potential, or you're leaving money on the table. And worse, you're probably losing money because you're not even aware of the problem. Let's look at payroll, for instance. When you research online about what percentage of your monthly collection should go towards payroll, the typical number you'll hear is about 25%. That number, though, is the same today as it was in 2013 when I first started. I can tell you for the majority of the years prior to the pandemic, my payroll costs hovered just around 15%. Of course, since the pandemic and for the last year and a half, the payroll costs have started to inch a little bit towards 18 to 19%. Am I saying that offices that have payroll costs of like 30% are doing something wrong? Absolutely not. If the bottom line numbers work for you, the owner, and you're happy with the take-home pay, and you're at peace with your mind because you've delegated everything to your team that you would hate doing, 30% is completely fine. Some of the supply costs are up 50 to 90%. If you didn't know that, go ahead and compare your supply costs today to what it was in 2019. Of course, the PPO reimbursements haven't kept up with that. And this, of course, affects your profitability and your take home, which is why I always say you constantly need to adapt and throw these standards right out the window. So going back to my point in the beginning, here are some things that I did when I started out, which I still continue to do today, which is exactly why I want to share with you guys. So number 1 is I discuss finances with patients directly from the operatory. I'm comfortable discussing finances with patients. It wasn't always this way, but over time, I learned and became better. This will help your team at the front and keep your schedule productive. If I'm treatment planning multiple implants, fixed bridges, etc., there's no one better than yourself to close that case while the patient is sitting in the chair. When I say close the case, it means getting the patient to schedule their next appointment to move forward. Either myself or my clinical assistant will prep the next planned appointment in open dental to get the patient to commit. Now, when the patient goes to the front, the team can take care of the financial agreements, the details, and collect the deposit for their next scheduled appointment. You don't need a dedicated team member to present cases, especially when you're starting out. Learn how to communicate effectively with patients when it comes to presenting cases. If you're in an established practice and you've got multiple associates, specialists under one roof, it totally makes sense to have someone dedicated completely for presenting cases and finances, but that's after you, the doctor, presented the case in a clinical setting, like in the operatory. So regardless, you still need to know how to present cases to patients. The second thing I did was to learn and understand how dental insurance works in my practice inside out. You graduated from dental school. I can promise you, you can learn dental insurance. If the experts tell you that you as the owner are wasting your precious time discussing finances with patients where you could be producing X hundred or maybe $1,000 per hour, well, if you don't understand how the money comes into your practice, I can guarantee you, you're losing way more than that per hour. The quickest way to start learning about dental insurance is to just jump right in and start doing some dental insurance verification calls for some of your patients, especially when you have free time. Then learn to attach the information you've gathered to the practice management software by attaching it to their chart. So next time when you have patients and you're looking at their treatment plan, well, now take a look at what the insurance reimbursement is. Take a look at what the patient is going to owe. If you just do these things for some of your patients, you're gonna learn how the dental insurance jargon is being used in an everyday setting. Once you understand the financials of your practice as it relates to dental insurance, you're gonna learn to become more efficient with your most expensive resource, which is your time. And because you understand the nuances of the different dental insurance plans and where your money is coming in from, you're gonna learn to maximize your scheduled appointment time with patients. Now, let's not confuse maximizing your schedule with taking shortcuts and compromising patient care. Absolutely not. Providing the best care for patients is a non-negotiable. But doing it with maximum efficiency, though, it requires an understanding the difference between why it's better to do quadrant dentistry on a few patients than seeing as many patients as possible within any given amount of time. All right, moving on. Number 3, if you're starting out in your practice, I can't stress enough the importance of putting in systems regardless of how small your team size is. Most offices are overstaffed. Create a lean practice by getting the most out of your small team. Now, getting the most out of your team does not mean overworking them. It just means that you, as the leader, the owner, take responsibility with your team to create systems that makes it easier for them to do their job. It's much easier to figure out and document how you want things done in your practice when you're starting out because you'll have more free time. As you become busier, you grow your team size, you scale your operations, you can then rely on these systems to help you and your team stay on top of what they need to do. All right, let's keep going. Number 4. Stop having negative connotations towards PPO insurances. It's everywhere. Patients hate insurance. The doctor hates insurance. And as a result, the team ends up hating insurance. For something that brings in more than half of the revenue of the business operations, you cannot operate from this mentality of negative energy. I am not getting into spirituality here or manifesting something positive or just praying. I'm saying it from my own personal experience of working with PPO insurances in my own practice for the last 12 years. Even today, PPOs still make up close to 50% of my collections. For something so substantial, my negative energy and mentality towards insurances gets directly passed to my team, and that ultimately affects their working habits. I'll give you an example. If I constantly give this impression that insurances tend to underpay or not cover what we expect, I'm normalizing something that isn't true. And then insurance tends to become the initial thought in your team's mind when they're discussing treatment with patients. You know this happens when you leave the room and the patient sitting in the chair starts asking your assistant questions regarding procedures you recommended. And the next thing you know, the assistant says something along the lines of, well, your insurance doesn't cover that, so this is definitely going to be more expensive for you. And the patient didn't even ask anything related to the cost of the procedure, yet they only wanted to know whether or not they needed this procedure done. And now the only thing this patient remembers, or the only words this patient remembers from the conversation with the doctor and the assistant, are the words, "This is going to be more expensive." This is just one example, but however you think about anything in your practice will show through your conversations, your behavior, etc. So instead of me complaining about being in network with a bunch of PPO plans, I have systems in place that my team and I can rely on without adding to the extra overhead of hiring additional team members or outside agencies. So accept the reality of dental insurance and figure out ways to make PPOs profitable in a way that works in your practice. Okay, moving on. Number 5, get rid of this thought that by sending in pre-authorizations or predeterminations for your patients is making you insurance dependent. This again goes in line with what I just discussed earlier about figuring out ways to make PPOs profitable by implementing systems. Well, this is one of them. Sending predeterminations in your practice to make sure you're going to get paid for the procedure you treatment plan for your patients is not only a good business decision, but it's also going to build goodwill with your patients. Some people hate sending in predeterminations because it does not guarantee payment. Of course, the insurances do make this very clear at the bottom of their EOB determinations that this is not a guarantee of payment. But what it really means is that the predetermination or the approved benefits are subject to the limitations of the plan at the time service is completed. Let me explain. Let's say you may have gotten something pre-authorized 3 months ago, and now in between the patient goes to a specialist and ends up using all their benefits. Now the patient comes back to your office to get that crown done. And now you generate a claim and now it gets denied because there's no benefits left on the plan. But if you had proper systems in place, you would have known that there was a predetermination sent out for this patient, which had approved benefits. But you would have also known, or your team would have also known, that this patient did see a specialist and then ended up using all their benefits. So your team would have also known that, hey, this patient is maxed out. We should let them know before we start any work that they're going to owe a balance. In the last 12 years of working with PPOs and sending predeterminations for patients, I've either gotten a denial for the work that I'm trying to get pre-approved, which is fine because now we can at least let the patient know that, hey, you're going to owe a balance because your insurance is not covering it. Or I've gotten an approval for the benefits that we would expect anyways, because when my team initially did the insurance verification, we do get the approximate coverage for different procedures. Either way, we've minimized the chances of having difficult conversations with patients, of having to complete the work, and then later finding out that it's not getting covered from insurance. The other opinion around predeterminations is that it delays treatment. Well, if a patient is sitting in my chair and we've treatment planned some work, that patient is going to get an appointment scheduled regardless. We just don't make the appointment for 2 weeks from the date of predetermination is sent, because in my practice, we found that it takes about 2 weeks to get the results of the pre-D back. This process has worked pretty well for my office, and I plan on making no changes to what's working already. So those are the 5 things. Just sharing what I've learned from my own practice. Good clinical dentistry is important. It's the non-negotiable, but you've got other responsibility as an owner. So it's super critical that you understand the financials of your practice. Don't listen to others when they tell you to hate on the PPOs. You can have a super profitable PPO practice and enjoy the take-home pay that supports lifestyle with your family. But it could mean doing things that you may not be comfortable with, like learning dental insurance, discussing finances with patients from the operatory, putting in the time upfront to implementing systems that supports the growth of your future practice. And that's it for today, guys. I hope this was helpful to at least one of you. And don't forget to smash that like button and keep tuning in for more videos.